Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, out there on Facebook or YouTube, and people looking on social media to either write an article or read some information and see if we can learn something. So today, I've chose the topic about demotivation. I spent about a couple hours on a walk through town today and met about 4 or 5 people, and it seems like I remember growing older as an older person, becoming a teenager, going to school, and then growing up and getting a job and stuff like that. And in the olden days, there was a push by the parents, and in some cases, it was kind of sad to see. But you'd have a farmer that had a big farm, and he had 4 or 5 boys, and it was kind of an awkward time for the man, because what was happening is his boys got older. The farmer did as well. So if he was lucky and he was a good manager and had some smarts, he was able to organize and plant better crops and eventually get into a computer system where he kept track of how you did your farming and what method you used, and learned about new fertilizers and stuff like that, and actually got to be a very productive farmer. Now, the sad part about it is the guy that had the 5 boys that grew up, what happened when the kids went to school, they met other boys, and a lot of times the farmer's sons met other people whose fathers were mill owners and stuff like that, and oil rig owners and employers. So the people working on the farms got to rub elbows in with other kids, and so they were going to school like at 12, 14, 15, up to 16, 17, 18 years old, and meeting other kids whose parents had a lot of money, and they were buying new cars for the kids, and the kids all kinds of toys. They had all kinds of electric guitars, cars and trucks, and so it was a motivation for the farm boys to learn as much as they could on the farm and get their skills up and get out and get a job, graduate from grade 12 and get out and get themselves a job and start earning so they could have a car and have a good job and have a car, which they couldn't do at home. Like on a farm, you worked long hours and you got paid once a year when you sold the crops, so there wasn't a bunch of money. So most boys chose to leave the farm. Now, some of them stayed on the farm because they could see their dad was getting older, and they had to stay there to help him, and they learned from him. So if the farmer was a productive, well-organized farmer, his boys became well-organized too. So if you had a family of 5 boys, maybe 1 or 2 of them stayed home and helped dad and took over the ranch or the farm afterwards and kept the thing going, and it was a productive thing. But it's a different life. When you go to work on, like if you go work on oil field operations, sometimes you're up making $2,000 or $3,000 a month when you're 17, 18 years old. And you can buy the things you want to at that point. Whereas the kids working on the farm, if you got a good crop, when the crop was off and they sold the crop, you got some money for your earnings. But there was usually so many bills for gasoline and parts and stuff like that, so the farm children didn't get big pay. But when they took the farm over, then they were able to get all the money for the crop when it was taken off. And they also had a chance of sitting back and seeing that there were some things that their dad wasn't doing. So if the father sent them to school and they learned some new procedures, and they actually became a better farmer because they learned shortcuts and to do all kinds of new products and stuff like that. So, but now I walk through town here and I see a hell of a mess happening. We have people now that are taken that are on it that don't have jobs, and unfortunately they don't have any money. So they're sitting either camping on tents, sleeping in sleeping bags under the bridges, sleeping under trees, or sleeping in the parks. And they don't have a job. In some cases, they haven't finished school. They've dropped out of school and they don't have the grade 12, which is a prerequisite. And so therefore they're down on the streets with their hands out, hoping that somebody will give them some money. Well, you and I know that, it's nice to help somebody out and give them a couple dollars if they're needy. I do that myself. But if the person is physically capable, let's say that if the person has good health, and we all went through the learning exercise, and you got to get that grade 12 under your belt. Now, the government in BC this year are offering under Work BC to help you finish your grade 12. And they're also encouraging people to take trades training. You can become a welder or a mechanic, or you can be an oil field operator or a heavy equipment operator. And in most cases, Work BC will help you by paying for the course for you. So there really isn't any reason other than the fact that the person has no motivation, because if the training is out there, it behooves us as young people, even older people who want to upgrade their skills. Let's say that you want to upgrade and learn how to do mechanics, or you want to be a welder or a computer technician or something like that. It doesn't matter what your age is. You can actually go to courses today and increase your education and earn more money. Because if you're a retired person and you don't have a high-paying job with a good pension program, you might have to still work. So I'm just trying to point out the fact that there are jobs out there, but you have to have the training first. First off, you have to have the training. So grade 12 that's got to be done. And that can be done at any vocational school. And some of the grade schools will still do that too. So there's no reason why, if a person is healthy, now I'm not talking about people who have no motivation. I'm talking about people who have physical disabilities. Maybe they can't walk properly, or maybe they've got mental issues, or they've taken drugs. Now, if they've taken drugs and damaged their brain, that's a whole different issue. Now, they might have to go in and get some medical treatment and some help to get out of that. Now, our government is finally slowly waking up and deciding that, look, we can't give drugs out to people because it wrecks their lives. You take the average teenager who gets out of school, if he's dropped out of school and didn't finish grade 12, he's probably laying around and hoping to hell his dad and mom will pay for him or her. And it doesn't work that way, because dad and mom have their own bills to look after. So it's nice to help them a little bit to get them started. But there's no reason why those children can't go to trade school and learn all kinds of courses and become skilled enough that they can go out and get a good job. Yes, that's how the price of housing has gone up. We know that. But there's no reason why people can't work. The only reason I can see, if they're physically disabled, that's maybe a different story. So they can qualify for welfare under those conditions. But we shouldn't have young people who are able, and I'm talking about physically able to walk around and use their brain and stuff like that. They should be employable. Now, to be employable, it means you've got to finish your grade school, you've got to get grade 12, and then trades training is the next thing. But the next thing for trades training is make darn sure before you take a bunch of courses where there's no opportunity. So you've got to go down to Work BC in these places and say, which particular trades are they hiring people today in? Is it welding? Is it a machinist? Is it carpentry? Is it plumbing? Or is it electrical? Or house construction? And then go to Work BC and take the training in those places where there's opportunity for hiring. And once you get the trades training, grade 12 and the trades training, then you get yourself a job and start making good bucks. And sitting down on the street on the cold pavement, holding your hand out, hoping that somebody is going to give you enough money to live your life on, is a very, very poor motivational skill. Because anybody who's healthy, if you're healthy and your brain is working up to a good function, go get your training, go get your specialized training, and see Work BC and get yourself a job and start buying yourself a nice car and renting yourself a nice place. And maybe if you're really lucky, you might get yourself in a position where you can buy a home. The thing that's happening right now, though, we see it across the world, and what we can see on the news, it's the same thing is happening here in town. You get a bunch of unemployed people, and they're kind of grouping together, trying to sympathize with each other, realizing that, oh my God, things are really tough. We can't get a job, and the government are no good, and they won't do this for us, they won't do that for us. Well, that whole mindset has to change. And I would encourage parents not to encourage that type of thinking. Tell the kid, you got to get out of my house, because now you're at the point in your life where I'm aging as well, and I'm going to die off. And that means to say that you're going to have to take over. Now, if you're hoping that you can just take over my house, it's going to happen, yes. But it's not free, because we still have taxes to pay and insurance and upkeep on the house. So even though you get a free house from your mom and dad, if you do, you'll be lucky. But the maintenance costs and the taxes and stuff are very high, so you still have to have a good job to pay for those maintenance costs and the repairs to the home. And if you bought yourself a vehicle, you got to buy gasoline for the car, and you have to buy clothes, work clothes, and stuff like that. So it never ends. If you can get yourself to work and get into a good retirement job where you pay a retirement of about 10% of your wages away, you'll prepare yourself for the future. So when you do get old, when you get to be 65, 68 get Canada pension, and 65 you get old age pension, and then if you have a work pension that kicks in at 65, making sure you have paid into that over the years, so you have a lot of money coming in after you finish work. Because while you're working, it takes quite a bit of your wages to look after your food and your car expenses and your lodging if you're having to stay in a motel or rent an apartment or wherever you're at. But we somehow, we've got to nip this thing in the bud. There's a type of thinking out there right now, and it's happening. We're talking about people who have very little motivation, and I think it's because they've grown up and their mom and dad didn't have a lot of bucks, and so they didn't take advantage of the extra learning that's available out there. So as a result of it, you wind up with a person who's maybe 20 years old, who has very little motivation. He'd like to have a job, but all of a sudden they start blaming the government because they don't have a job. Well, the basic responsibility is on the employee and the parent. So if you've got some children that are staying at home, living at home and not doing anything, and you're having to feed them, you'll never catch up, because as you age out, your wages are not going to be high enough to look after feeding the kids, look after all that stuff. So you better have to steer them into education, get them to see Work BC, get their grade 12 completed, and get some skills training under their belt so they can get into a job and qualify for a job that pays good bucks. And that we can't let this attitude, we can't let people get the attitude, oh, the government don't look after anybody, they should be buying me a house. No, everybody is born equal in the world. So we're born equal, we get our education up to par, and our parents push us to get our education done while we're living at home. And then when we get after age 18, normally we should be attending trade school or taking computer courses or stuff like that and getting our education up, and not expecting the government to come along and look you up sleeping in a corner someplace under a bridge or something because you don't have a job and you're complaining because the government doesn't do it. Well, the self-motivation has to be there. And the responsibility to push the child into that, or lead them, is with the parent. Got to coach them to go to school, get your grade 12, get some trades training, and get out and get yourself a good job. And you may have to live at home for a little while, but once you get a good job, then you have some money, some usable money that you can pay for some, you have to pay some lodging or maybe some meals or something like that. But it can be done. Everybody can do it. It's being done for years and years and years. But yes, the government lost control and the cost of housing has gone high. And hopefully with the new election going on in Canada, we're going to get a Poilievre, a new prime minister. And the prime minister we have now, he got money handed down from his dad over the years, and he never worked a day in his life, so he doesn't understand the responsibilities of getting out there and getting some education and looking for yourself a job and getting yourself into a productive, earning person who's got some motivation. And when you get up in the morning, you have to have a reason to live. You have to have a reason to live. And the reason to live right now is to earn enough money to buy food, to buy a place to rent, to buy a car, to buy a home, and it's never changed over time. The only thing that's changed is the cost of living has gone up, and the cost of cars and new homes and stuff like that has gone up as well. But we can still survive. But we have to have the motivation. We've got to get out there and get moving, and tell ourselves, I am not going to lay at home and expect my mom and dad to feed me because they don't have enough money to look after themselves, let alone me. So that motivation has to be pushed right onto the student. Now, the responsibility is with the parent to make that happen. Sometimes you get a single parent family where there's just a mother and she doesn't have the skills or she's afraid to push on the child. But if you don't push them and they offer some leadership for them, they're going to wind up being sleeping under the bridges and have no job, and they'll be out in the street complaining, oh, dude, I can't get a job. The government don't do this, they don't do that. Well, yes, but the basic responsibility is with the person. And the responsibility to lead the person is with the parent and with the school system. So it behooves us as seniors to keep working with our children to get them into a training system where they get their brain all trained up, find out where the opportunities are, go to school, get a job, and start living a life that's got some rewards to it. Because living underneath a bridge, very, very humiliating and no motivation at all. You'll never get enough money that way to get ahead. I'm sure we can complain and say, well, Billy here's got a good job and I don't have one. Well, let's find out what the hell Billy did to get there and do what he did. So let's get our self-motivation going as parents and also to coach our children and get them to get them serving the community in a way that's productive and give them some dignity so they have dignity in their life where they can pay their own bills, buy their own car, get a good job, and live a real good life. So have yourself a great evening. Bye-bye for now.